Okay, Grandma, welcome back. This is our fifth episode.
Number five?
Number five.
Okay,
I think it's number five.
good.
So we're gonna start out with some questions from your least favorite grandson, Sam.
Now, I didn't
What?
ever say
No, I'm
anything
just
like
kidding.
that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um, just kidding, Sam. We love you. Okay, so Sam's first question is, what was your favorite grandpa stage? Number one, mustache, or number two, clean shaven?
I will say clean shaven.
Yeah.
And he did that most of his life. He only had the mustache for a very short time.
How long?
Probably a year, year and a half, maybe. I never did really pay that much attention to the time frame, but uh, he took his mustache off, and I was okay with that.
He
I
didn't
liked
like
him
it.
both ways. I don't know if it was something tricky to keep clean, or
Mm.
I don't know what the scoop was. He just decided it was time to take that mustache off.
And people like in the 60s, I guess 50s, 60s, 70s, a lot of them were just clean shaven, right?
Yes.
It was just very normal.
But the people who wore a mustache were just famous for always having it, and they
Mm.
must have really identified with it and kind of enjoyed doing that. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay, next
So,
question. Um, okay, what has been your favorite house slash city that you've lived in so far, and why?
the favorite house, I guess you would say this one,
This one.
because it has many really fond memories, and I've lived here longer than any other house.
How long have you lived here?
Well, we moved here in 1990, and this is 33 years.
Wow.
At the end of the year, yeah. Yeah, we moved here in 1990. So I have a lot of fond memories. It's a comfortable house, and I
Yeah.
just really appreciate it.
Man, good deal. I like this house too. Which grandchild gives the best hugs?
The best hugs.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I might start a family feud here.
Start it, Grandma.
um,
You have to choose. And you have to say me. No, I'm just kidding. You can say whoever.
I I I get a lot of Mr. Bear hugs from Mr. Christian, yeah,
That's right.
and I love every one of the hugs. So I'll just let you all kind of figure out who's
Oh.
the toughest on
We
that.
wanted you to choose, Grandma. We wanted you to pick a side.
Give it
Um,
a what?
what is your favorite and least favorite dish to make for the family?
My favorite and least favorite?
Yep.
Oh, I don't know what a least favorite would be. Um, I think something probably so simple as oatmeal, because I just kind of have learned to enjoy cooking, and
Mm.
so I like to um, make things. Some of the things are a little bit complicated,
Yeah, I
and
was gonna say, what's like maybe the hardest dish then? You know.
um, some of the time-consuming ones that would involve 2 or 3 days of working on the recipe, like a sourdough thing, getting it started
Yeah.
and perfecting it, and then making the bread and making it work successfully. That might be the most complicated for me.
Yeah. Let's see. What is your favorite Uncle Mike moment or memory?
Uncle Mike's moment.
Yeah, just your favorite moment. I don't know, with Mike. You can think about it. I guess that's a tough
Okay.
question
Yeah,
on the
it
fly.
is.
And there's also the follow up question is your favorite Regina moment.
Okay.
And Sam spelled Regina wrong. Way to go, Sam. So I'll let you think about those.
Okay. I will do
your
that.
favorite Mike and Regina moments.
Okay.
And the next one is what's the hardest class you took in nursing school?
Um,
That's a good question.
it's possibly microbiology or pharmacology, because you have to remember what the medication is all about so that you give it to the person in the right dosage, but making certain that you're careful with that microbiome. And anatomy was wonderful to me. That's learning all the parts of the body. That just was absolutely delightful to me.
Really?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I just
It's
found
funny
it.
you say that because that's anatomy is like they have classes that weed out the people in certain majors, right? And certain math classes are the classes for some majors, but for like the medical field, it's apparently anatomy. Like people fail anatomy the most, and then people fail it, and then they don't want to take it again, and then they change majors.
Oh my
It
goodness.
weeds them out.
Well, the names of the muscles are created by the place on the bone where they attach. And that was fun to learn the bones too. And I just thought anatomy was just one of my favorite subjects, honestly.
Wow.
It just really was. It just didn't seem difficult to me when they explained how it functioned, the names, how they created them.
Yeah.
But pharmacology was something that was, and medicines are always changing, so you have to know what you're giving to an individual so that you give them the right thing and don't mix up rooms. We had a guideline where we'd have to look at the room number 3 times and call the person by name and make sure they answered us with the proper response when you called them by name.
Really?
It was 3 identifiers to say you're giving the medication to the right person and it's the right room and
Wow.
whatever. Sometimes people would just be kind of relaxed,
Aloof.
and when you went in, they would just kind of answer you, but you had to make sure, and then you look at their name band.
Wow.
So,
That's really interesting.
oh yes, it's a very specific thing we had to do to be accurate.
And you learned that in school.
Oh yeah, not in school, but in nurses training. Yeah.
Okay, nurses
Oh yeah.
training. Yeah.
Hmm.
What was one of your easier classes? Because when I got into my upper division for business, it got a lot easier. Like the high level theory classes, it was kind of funny. Just the longer you went on, the easier it got. And maybe that's just business, but what was an easy class for you?
Easy class.
Maybe besides anatomy, because you liked it so much.
I did like it. I liked fundamentals of nursing, which was the one I explained possibly the last time about learning what the person was there for and being very conscious of saying just what you needed to say or do to help encourage them to live through what they were dealing with, kind of thing.
Wow.
And to know the treatment for it and carry through with that. And it was just called, like I told you about my dad who had the diagnosis that he did, and then what the emotional ramifications would have been of that for him to understand the difference in his life from
Yeah.
then on.
So they have a class where you learn how to emotionally support patients.
Oh yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I've heard this before, but um, when someone has like a better outlook on their situation, they, I don't know. Do they usually like live longer or last longer?
I think that my dad was an absolute wonderful example of how to deal with a very hard change in his life.
Yeah.
And he it might not have been the first year after his surgery that he was able to do it, but he took on the extra crops even to help the income, and he just didn't let anything stop him. He didn't fuss about it. He didn't complain. He just was. It was a good example of how to roll with what happens to you in life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, very interesting. So we have Ben's question from last podcast.
Yes, yes.
Or I think it might have been Emily or Ben. I think it was Ben, right?
Ben asked the one about the most memorable kind of occasion of eating
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I imagine that my most dramatic, expensive kind of meal would have been when we were on the cruise. You know how they just don't have to worry about finances on those things. They just make the food of the area
Yeah.
and make it good, and it was just everything.
Which cruise is this?
We went on a cruise to with your mom.
Oh, one of the
Oh,
Vikings
yeah,
cruises.
the Viking cruise.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so that was good. But you talk about I told you the unusual thing about something that my mom did. Um, you know, we did not have a refrigerator for a long time that functioned more than just one day at a time after you lit it up and did all that. And when we went to town, if it was in the budget, we'd get a little box of fish that was frozen,
Hmm.
and it's called whiting. And when you thaw it out, you have to use the whole thing and cook the whole thing at the same time because you don't have refrigeration or a freezer or anything like that to keep it. So she would have this nice big serving of fried whiting, and it was just wonderful. You just dip it in flour and cornmeal and fry it, and it's a very tender, good tasting fish. So I have to say I have good memories of that, enough that I went to Winco one day and asked them if they ever have a thing called whiting, and they said, oh yes, it's just now out, but it'll be in next week, and I got me a box.
So what is
did.
whiting? What is that
It's just
exactly?
the one kind of fish, like you say the name catfish
Okay.
or carp or
Oh,
fillets of sole, whatever.
interesting.
Whiting was just I guess it's an ocean fish, but
Huh.
it's just good.
And so your mom made
Yeah,
fried whiting.
yeah, she made it good.
Wow.
And it was just such a different treat. We didn't have that much fish. The men would go to the creek and fish, and we'd have them for breakfast. We'd
Cool.
always have the little fish and they were fried the same way. They were very good too. But I can remember that. It's a simple little thing, but it was just a real treat to us. Of course,
I
I
like
told you
that.
about the country hams. We like that too.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
country hams. So I think we'll jump into some pictures here, okay?
Okay.
And I will show them to you. So did you want to show this painting as well?
And I will explain to you why I have such a picture.
Yeah, Thompson Mill Covered Bridge.
We had a bus that picked us up on our farm in Decatur all the time. And of course, we rode to school on the bus every single day. And what this picture shows you is the kind of bridge that we rode through every day to go back and forth from school. It's now has been changed so that it's a modern bridge with no covering. But in those days, it would be so cold and be icy, and they would
And so the bus would
put
go
the
through
cover.
there.
Oh yeah, we'd drive right up the hill, just a short distance at the top of that hill, was a name of one of my classmates, Shelba Cooper. And the famous thing about Shelba is,
Shelba. What an interesting name.
yes, Shelby.
Oh.
She had polio.
Mm.
The year that I moved there. And the interesting thing was we heard on the phone the progress of how she was doing in the hospital. And it was a party line. So when someone got on the phone, you picked up the phone, the earpiece, and you listened to see if the line was busy. And sometimes when the line was busy, it was them talking about how Shelba was doing it. This is really a unusual thing to have polio, and she survived it. And we would listen and hear the progress. And finally, she got to come home, but she lived about 200 yards from that bridge.
So this is a picture of a real bridge.
Yes, that's a real bridge, and it's exactly like the one that we rode through.
So how did you? This is a picture of a bridge in Decatur.
Just outside of Decatur.
Who painted this? Who?
I don't know who painted that.
Where did you get this?
I probably picked it up because it reminded me of that bridge that we rode through all the time. Yeah, we just got it.
Wow.
That's
really
what it
cool.
is. But it looked just like that. Exactly. They were all the same.
I like it.
Anyway, Shelby survived and she graduated with us.
Wow.
So it was all good.
Did she have any lasting issues?
She had a little bit of not anything you could really focus on if you didn't know her before, but she had a endotracheal tube in place for a long enough time and made her a little bit, it wasn't hoarse, but made her voice a little something that she had to kind of be mindful of. But she talked fine. She talked fine.
Was polio the one where they had to use the iron lung for them?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
To keep you breathing. Yeah. That's what she was in, the iron lung for a while.
She was in the iron lung.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Wow.
And we would listen on the phone and hear how things were going for her and the progress of her getting better or worse or whatever. All summer long, we listened, and anyway, she got to come back to school and was fine. Now, this is an insertion of a picture to show you the rest of the growth time of the tobacco. Such a nice picture to show that. And you see the little blooms on the top called suckers that I mentioned, that you break those off, and then it allows the leaves to get fuller. And that was part of the harvesting time, and shows you about how big the tobacco gets.
Wow.
See how it's big.
So that's almost full grown.
Tobacco. Oh yes, it's going to be cut probably within a couple of weeks of that.
Wow.
Maybe 3, maybe 2.
And who's that right there?
You what?
Who's that?
That's my mom. Yeah. That's her crop. And look how she kept that nice green mowed right up to the edge of the field. She was just good with her farm.
Yeah.
Kept things really nice.
How old do you think she was in that photo?
I'm thinking she was probably 82 or 3.
Wow. How old are you right now?
I'm going to be 83 my next birthday.
Wow.
The end of the year, I always become whatever the year is. 2 weeks before it's over. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We have some more old photos here.
And I'll share with you why I put those in. Now, I told you about how my mom was so brave to drive all the cars in the very beginning when people ever first owned a car, and they were afraid to drive them themselves.
Right.
So she would be called to come and help drive them to town until they got brave enough and courageous enough driving the car to drive their own car. But she would go and drive different people, and that was a picture of her, and I found that after the story last time that I shared.
She looks pretty young in that picture.
Yeah.
Very young.
Mom was young and brave and sort of fearless with all that stuff. But there she is. You can see her.
Good deal.
Yeah. And that's to show you there was an extra barn down below the cow barn. And there's a little dog there, I'll tell you.
Who's that?
I'll tell you about him.
I
told you about Frank and Ida McCann, who lived in the city. One day they came to our house and had this pup with them. He was full grown, of course. And they just brought that dog knowing that we would take care of it, and they thought it was better for him to be in the country than in the city where they lived.
Wait, they gave you this dog?
Yeah.
They gave it to you?
Oh, yeah. His name was Pepper.
Pepper?
And we just had him for years and just loved him. But
Is this
they
Pepper?
didn't write or ask or anything. They just brought him. We had him.
Dang,
Yeah,
they just abandoned Pepper.
yeah.
No.
They knew he'd be happy, and they knew that we kids would enjoy him. So
Yeah.
that was it. And that's the cow barn. And then the barn just below that was eventually torn down.
Mm.
And that was the reason I believe that picture was taken, because Mom said, I think on the back of it, that they were in the process of tearing it down. It just looked kind of ramshackled.
Oh, I see. Interesting. And is this
Hmm.
Pepper?
Pepper. That's him.
Pepper.
Yeah, and we just loved that dog, and he was a good dog too. We
Yeah.
didn't do any tricks or anything. He was just a great dog.
No tricks, but he was a dog.
Yeah.
How old were you when you got Pepper?
We were probably well, we got over there in the 4th grade at least, so we were in the 5th or 6th grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got Pepper when
Hmm.
you were pretty young.
Yeah.
Wow. And how long did Pepper live? Do you know?
He lived a good long life. It was long after we were gone from school, so
Would he go out when your mom and dad would go do harvesting and things like that? Would he go out with them?
he probably did go close by, but he never did seem to cause any complications, or they didn't have to get after him or scold him or anything.
What did you guys feed dogs back then? Was there dog food or
No, we fed him table scraps.
table
Well,
scraps?
We didn't buy dog food. And
Was,
they
yeah,
put,
was that even a thing back then? Dog food?
no, it might have been, but we wouldn't have known about it. We wouldn't have done it either.
Yeah.
So, and then at the barn, they'd probably give him a pan of milk. You know,
Oh,
you know, the cats get a little milk, and the dog would get a little treat too.
Yeah.
But he stayed healthy and whatever. And I don't know if he ate a few little snack rats or whatever.
Snack rats.
Yeah, if he did something like that, if he was hungry for protein, I don't know.
Yeah, he probably hunted down some rats.
Oh
for you,
yeah,
huh?
rabbits or
Yeah.
yeah. And that's a picture of my brother in his teen years, and showed that he was playing the guitar and learning very well. That
Wow.
that dark thing on the right is the corner of the piano. We always had a piano,
Hmm.
so he was posing there, and that was our fancy TV. We didn't have a TV for many years.
Wow.
But when we got it, we really, really enjoyed it. We watched cowboy movies, only cowboy movies. There weren't things on like there are now.
Yeah.
And
How old was Punky there, you think?
I'm going to say he's probably 17, something like that.
He's got himself a mustache.
Yeah. I
Maybe
don't
that's part of the costume. I can't tell.
I don't know whether he painted that on or whether he grew that, but I don't remember him having a mustache.
Hmm.
But anyway, he
Nice. I'm trying to figure out what chord that is he's holding on the guitar. So he's doing a bar chord.
he's probably just posing.
No, I can tell because he's
You
covering.
think?
Yeah, what you do with your four fingers, you cover a whole fret to bring it up an octave, I think.
Okay.
Or you change
Yeah.
keys with it, and then it looks like I'm trying to think what chord is that? Is that an E? He might be playing an E, a couple frets
Oh,
down.
interesting that you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not very good at guitar, but
I
he was pretty good, right?
yeah, he got to be very. Oh, look at that picture again. Is that a picture of him sitting on one of those chairs?
It might be.
The picture of the one that I showed you last week,
Oh, the wicker chair. You
in the
mean?
wicker chair.
Yeah, it could be.
Could be.
That might be it. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, he had the other one. We each got one with that famous story about the fire.
So, your mom was able to grab two chairs.
She grabbed a chair on each arm.
Wow.
And that's a picture of him with a little fishing pole. I guess I just saved that because it was kind of cute, and it's out by the edge of our yard.
Now,
That's
what did Punky end up doing after after high school?
Oh, he worked for a trucking company. Oh, he preached some, and there's a little picture maybe of the church where he preached down near the Decatur. Liberty Chapel, it was called. When we come to it, I'll share that
Yeah.
with you. He preached for a couple of years, but living in Cincinnati the way he did, and I think he worked at the trucking company um, for a good long time. It might have made it really difficult to drive up on the one day and back again and then work. Then I don't know whether he had one job before the other or not, but he worked for a company called Consolidated Freightway, and he was very much in demand. He did an office job and did dispatching and all
Really?
that stuff. He's very, very accomplished.
Wow.
Yeah,
So he ran like
they liked him.
the office stuff. He wasn't
Yeah.
like a driver or trucker.
No, what didn't drive a truck?
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Anyway,
And so this is a picture of him. What's he doing here?
he's got a fishing pole.
Oh.
Can you see he's holding it
Oh,
on
yeah,
his
yeah.
left shoulder? My brother was left-handed too.
Was he?
Yeah, he was left-handed.
How interesting.
That's very different to be a left-hander, huh? And that is a picture that could have been when my brother graduated.
Who's this guy on the left?
That is Papa.
Who's Papa?
My mom's dad that lived with us all of our life. That's a fairly good picture of him.
He looks old.
Yeah, he was. He was.
He looks a little scary. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, he was getting delicate.
A little closer up. Hold on.
I think to myself, I don't know if there's another picture of him better or not, but he would not have gone to any of the functions. He just kind of stayed home, and it was understood, nobody was bothered one way or the other. But you see, my dad's got his suit on.
Yeah.
And my brother has a suit on. He didn't wear a suit to church all the time, so I have a feeling that was taken after he graduated. So
Interesting.
it's a good typical picture of them, though.
What is this? A piano?
That's my piano,
Ooh.
the one I learned on.
Did your mom play piano?
She could, but she was shy to do it because other people played more, and she could play chords and things like that. Now, the reason I wanted to show this fencing is this. This was all taken out and mowed to be a nice, smooth, continuous thing right up to the road. That plant on the left with a little spike on the top
Yeah.
was famous for being a really wonderful plant back there. They call it an Adam and Eve. Out here they call it a yucca. That's what it was.
A yucca
A
plant.
yucca plant. Somebody had brought that from out here, I'm sure, and it survived all the winters and all the weather that we had back there. But the fence was taken out, and to show you how creative my dad was, that fence, the wire of that could be pulled apart, and he created the pegs that go in the ground to hold the tobacco cotton in place that I told you about. The tobacco bed, it would poke it down through a hole,
Yeah.
and it would hold it nice and tight. And I have one of those here, but I must have used it in my garden, and I can't locate it. But it was such a nice little keepsake because he was so creative. He used the fencing to make pegs instead
Wow.
of having to go to the store and buy something.
Very resourceful. Huh?
Oh yeah, he did all the time. And there I'm graduating.
This is you graduating high school.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now we lived in Decatur, so that's when I wanted to tell you the next little thing over here. We evidently had mills that grind your corn and your wheat and stuff on the different farms that we lived on, because some of them had, stationary things that we didn't have to deal with. It was just part of the farm. It was inside the barn and protected very well. But when we went to Ohio, where we lived there, when these are taken, my mom would fill up a bag of corn, and we'd go to the mill together. And the ladies did this. The mom and the daughter did this. and you would ask them to put in something of a nutritional extra thing from another bag to make it extra rich for the cattle to eat. And it was in bags. That's what the kind of bags are that I was going to show you.
Is that what you got there?
That's one of those feed bags that you would add to the. Um,
You can show
the
it right there.
oh yeah, I can show it up here. Here's one.
Mhm.
See there?
Yeah.
And what you did, you see the amount in that bag?
So what would go in there? Cattle feed?
Yeah, for the cows. Yeah.
And what did that consist of? Like, what was it?
It was probably some molasses, ground up stuff, a grainy kind of thing. But it was very nutritional for the cows. And I could show you, but I don't want to make it undone forever. If you get hold of these strings on this bag and pull the right two at the same time, it just comes all apart.
Really?
It just is a fun little thing to know. But the thing I was going to tell you is this. Now, see, I have another one here to show you
Now,
that
how old are these? What?
these bags.
Yeah. How
Well, let's see.
old? Are those bags that you got with your mom and
Yeah, they were mom's.
way back in the day?
And I found them and I recognized what they were, so I didn't want to throw them away.
Wow.
So, but the thing is, it would take about 2, maybe 3 of these
Uh-huh.
in order to make an item of clothing. Depends on how the pattern was. If it was full, you you had to have 3 or 4 bags. But the ideal thing was to get enough of these pretty little bags in the same pattern, like
Yeah.
get 2 of them at once. And you know what? We just didn't even we didn't afford to do that unless we were really feeling rich, because they were like a few cents more
Huh.
to buy these pretty bags. I can't remember how much it was, 70 cents, maybe 50, I don't know what it was. But you had to add that onto your bill.
Right.
And so you could make an apron out of one, but if you needed to make a blouse, you had to calculate how much you needed to just make a real basic blouse with no frills and no
Yeah.
extras on it.
Did you ever like mix patterns just because you had to?
We didn't have that kind of sharpness to do that, no.
Interesting.
But that was at this era of
That's
time.
fun. So you got, what is that? You got 4 of those?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Can you show us all the patterns real quick?
I-
What's
I-
that one
I
on the
think-
bottom? Yeah,
I
that one.
think this is another bag. Yeah, this is another bag.
What is that? What are those little pictures?
It's got a picture of one of them is a little girl with a jumping rope,
Yeah, jump rope.
and the other one is a little boy and a girl, and they're in the rain. The rain's coming down on them,
Huh.
and then there's one of a little boy and a dog. So you see why these are treasures.
That's
to
a
think.
that's a nice one right there too. That little vegetable one. What is that?
This one,
Yeah.
that is pears,
Ooh, my favorite.
and a green apple, and they've got something green on there,
I like that one.
cherries or something, but they're the wrong color, aren't they? The cherries are green. But this would have been the kind of thing that we would get, and the cobs, we didn't care to save them. I guess they ground them up and did something else with them. But the corn was shelled off of there and then ground up and then mixed with this nice additional thing
Huh.
that came in these bags.
Wow.
Yeah. So Mom and I would go off to town and do that. And we'd go down to the corn crib and fill up this burlap sack.
The corn crib.
Oh yeah, that was one of those buildings on the left-hand side of those 2 barns. That was a corn crib, nothing but corn in it.
Nothing but corn.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had grown it. That's the thing. We grew our own corn. So
Wow.
then we'd take that to town and have that additional good nutritional stuff added to it, and maybe someday bring home a bag, a
Nice.
fancy bag.
I
But
like
we
that.
didn't do that in Kentucky because we had our own mill to grind the corn.
Really?
Yeah, it was on the farms where we grew that. And that's graduation.
And so these are your other classmates, right?
Yeah.
And so how big was your graduating class?
12.
12 people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were the other class sizes like 11th grade, 10th grade? It was about the same.
Similar. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Interesting.
And that's just another picture of graduation, getting your diploma or
Did your mom and dad have a camera, or was this like a professional?
they must have. I don't know how else we would have gotten that because we didn't do any kind of professional stuff at that time at all.
Interesting.
And we were talking the last time about, that's what typically it looked like. That was, I showed you the brooder house the last time where the little baby chicks are.
Yeah.
And when they got to be much bigger, well, they wouldn't even begin to fit in that brooder house because they grow, and then you let them out on the green grass and all that.
Yeah.
But this is a hen house, and it had nests all along one side of it, and it doesn't show how big that is, but it was probably 90 feet long. It was real long and skinny.
It goes on off to the left, real long.
Yeah, this side.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, got it.
And
wow. So you guys had a lot of chickens.
At one time we had 250. That was the most we ever did.
Wow.
But chickens can have complications too, with illnesses. And so we grew chickens a couple of years that were pretty profound in number. And then we didn't grow as many or raise as many.
Would you sell the eggs, or
Oh, yeah.
What did you do?
We never had to pay for groceries.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, so you traded?
Out of Decatur. Oh, they were happy to get our eggs.
And you guys would like literally trade?
Yeah.
Or would you sell and then use the money to buy?
We'd literally trade, and we always got money back because we had
in excess.
And we always washed our eggs.
So you paid in eggs every time you went to grocery.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we did.
So how many? So 250 chickens. That's a lot of eggs. I mean.
Yeah.
How did you transport the eggs?
Oh, we had a big crate, and it held probably I don't know how many layers there were. Probably 4 or 5. 5 times 12 is 60 or so in a crate, and we'd haul it out there, and they liked our eggs.
Did they sell your eggs in town?
Oh, yeah.
So your eggs, you traded your eggs, and then your eggs were sold at the general store.
Yeah, and ours were really fresh.
Wow.
Because, we'd go out there and never had to pay much of anything.
Wow. And so what store was this? Was it like a general store?
Yeah, it was a grocery store, really. It was not, it had some other things maybe, but we only went there for groceries.
And you always saw your eggs on sale. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, look who it is, Grandma.
Yeah.
Which one is you?
I think I'm in that one. I think I'm the one on the far left. Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. And I guess I wasn't as tall as some of the gals, and I thought I was, but.
So that was so there was, let's see, 5 of you, right?
Uh-huh.
Wow. Very cool. I imagine, is this the letter that's right there?
Yeah, I guess so.
Is this it?
I can't tell which year it is, but I would say that the one on the that has the bars on it was after I had been in there for the 3 or so 4 years.
Why don't you show these to
the
the camera? So it looks like this one. If we toggle back real quick, I think that's on her uniform right there. I don't know if this is the same D on the uniform, but it kind of looks like it.
It could be.
And that was there's her little Letterman's jacket. And she's got the 3 bars because she was in there for 4 years. You get You get the main one for your first year, and then a bar for each year after, right?
I just didn't even know that until you pointed it out today. That was interesting to
Yeah,
me. That was interesting.
those are cool. So I mean, those are like, what year was this? When did you graduate high school?
I don't know if that was my first year or the last
Oh,
year. There are
true.
two pictures in there of the cheerleading thing. I don't know if I lost the other one in the mix or not, but there was one where we were stooping down, and um, I just don't know which year that was.
Way back in the day.
Could have been 61.
Wow.
And that's typically what it looked like in our countryside back in the farm area and all the local in the fall. Yeah, that one would
Just
be close
sort of
to
your
fall.
average road in Decatur
Mm-hmm.
back in the day.
Yeah, but that's just probably somewhere on our countryside area. I'm trying to see what that one is. Oh, that is the picture looking out the kitchen window towards the road, and that's typical. That's Mom's yard, and then it has many other things added that are grown up into bigger trees and so forth. But she just mowed it right out to the edge of the road. She did.
She liked mowing, huh?
She was a good one for keeping it neat. And this picture I kept because you see that little white, I called it a carriage house before. See the shape of it
In the middle?
next to the car.
Okay, yeah, right.
See how it's shaped down in the back and was built out to accommodate the the cars and the carriages and all that being parked in it. So that's why I saved that picture, because it was good to show that.
Wow, interesting.
And it's gone now too. And that was the Bruder house to the right of it. And that's Frank and Ida McCann. They always had those fine cars. And they're the ones that just brought that pup up and left him for us
Pepper.
one day.
They
Pepper.
just gave you Pepper.
Yeah, they brought us Pepper. And they just knew. They didn't even ask. They just brought him. Isn't that interesting?
And Pepper slept outside, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Always.
Did Pepper ever come inside?
I don't think so.
He wasn't allowed inside?
Not once.
Did he try to come in?
I don't think so. I think he kind of understood he was supposed to be out there. I don't
Wow.
think he ever got in the house.
He's a good boy. I like him.
He was an outdoor puppy. And that is a picture going down the road from our home to the Bender farm, and that's the one you can't tell it too well, but it's a pretty steep going down over the hill eventually. And he's the young man that I told you got his finger caught in the hay baler, and he lost his finger.
Ouch.
So interesting. He came to school. He had to have grafting. And the way they did it, they put it right there to his stomach, and he would come to school, and he was taped so that his finger was there, and they were grafted skin from his stomach.
So his finger was attached to his stomach, like until it healed.
Until it grew some tissue over, and they cut some tissue and made it work.
Really? That's wow. That's how they
Yeah.
graft. I didn't know that.
And this was the kind of time when I'll tell you this next little part. I didn't make the dress, of course. I think this was Sarah's. But talk about learning to sew. When Emily was asking about it, I made the monkey. He's got a bad-looking spot on his forehead from something stained. But I made this out of socks. And Uncle Bobby liked the sock monkeys, and I was going to make him one, but of course he was far away, and then he died, and so I couldn't. But I made that monkey out of a pair of socks we went to Maysville one day and got.
When did you make that? How old is that?
Oh, it's well. Let's see. If I'm 83, I probably made it when I was 15.
Grandma,
Yeah.
that's old.
Oh yeah.
It's still in like pristine shape.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very very old.
What's it stuffed with?
Probably old sweaters and stuff from home. Because we
Really?
wouldn't have bought stuffing for it. I can tell it's not real stuffing. And this was the other
Wow.
thing that I told you I made. One of the first dresses I ever made.
Wow.
And I ironed it because I found it in the garage. And it was all bunched up in a box. But that was something I made. And it's got my name from nurses training. I stitched that in there. I don't know when I did that, if it was in nurses training or what, but yeah, well, I was very young when I did it. And that's the kind of name tags we had on our clothing when we were in school. That's where I would have gotten that name tag. But I made that for some occasion. That was,
And so you made that when you were in your teens?
mm-hmm,
Wow.
yeah, because I graduated when I was 21 from nurses school even. You went to nurses training for 3 years, no summers off. It was solid, so that's why it was 3 years. Because if you broke your train of the learning process and got out of it, we were working our way through school. It was $125 per year. We worked our way through school.
And that was a big deal back then.
Big deal.
100, so what year is that? 100.
1958 to 1961 is when I went.
Okay. Let me look up. I'm gonna look it up right now.
Okay.
The exchange rate. So $125 you said?
Mhm.
$125 in.
But then remember, we worked 8 hours total of class and work on the job all the time.
What year did you say?
I graduated in 61.
So we'll call it 58. Okay.
58. Yeah, yeah.
So we'll do. Let me see here. Okay, so $125 in 1958 is the equivalent of $1,327 today.
Okay.
That's the inflationary equivalent.
Uh-huh.
So, and that was per semester or per year?
Per year.
Per year, okay.
So, but as I said, we did not go home. I'll tell you another tidbit on the end of that after I share with you. But we went solid, and that would have broken our train of ability to continue on with what they needed done at the hospital. And we had a thing called a big sister, someone who was assigned to kind of oversee or help you. I never really interacted with mine hardly, and I don't think any of the girls did, but you had a thing called a big sister, and you were just so busy. If you had really any difficulties, you could ask to talk to them or whatever. But I found out that our class was probably the last one that was able to work our way through school like that. Then the tuition went way a lot higher.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Because someone said something about a doctor's daughter was in school, and I don't know whether she talked to her dad or how it all. I don't know how if that's really true or not. But the point is, if it had been later years, I probably never could have afforded to go to school.
Wow.
Because we added the work hours that we did in the hospital and the hours that we were in class, and it totaled 40 hours. That's the way they averaged it out. So we were actually working and in charge after about 3 months on night duty or swing. We call it evenings, but 3 to 11 and then 11 to 7. And talk about spooky. That was really a heavy load to go over there and be in charge of like 30 patients, and they were all in different states of their medical situation. Some had just come out of surgery that day, and sometimes if you had a person who was post-op like that, you could have help. Maybe they would send someone to sit by their bed and watch them, take their blood pressure every couple of hours, so to speak. But we had interspersed on our floor all kinds of patients, people that just got in, people who had surgery that day, and it was a nice calm mixture. You didn't have 5 surgeries in one day usually. It was kind of spaced out that way. But I'll have to tell you, one thing I recall that is so funny. We had a little preacher man who was a constant patient, and they were able to have him as he didn't have a medical thing that was so bad. It was almost like just needed to have one-on-one to keep him from doing something goofy. But he wasn't bedfast or anything like that. And he had a private duty nurse round the clock, so we didn't have to worry about him. But this is the funny part.
Is that an assigned nurse, like from the hospital?
No, it was somebody he was able to afford from
Okay.
his private financial ability or family, or not because the hospital or insurance, anything like that covered it. But this is the funny part I've got to tell you. When he would get wound up and kind of go funny in his head, he would be yelling in the middle of the night, "Going to hell by golly on a trolley, by golly, going to hell by..." And so the nurse would have to calm him down. And of course, we didn't have to worry one thing about it because she was one-on-one with him. And
Wow.
it was just totally, but I'll never forget. Someday I'll remember his name. It was absolutely, because he was always on the same floor, in the same room. And many students went through the training of being on that floor and can recall.
Yeah.
So it was a really fun memory to think
Wow.
about that.
And so how long was he there? Was he there like long term?
Oh yeah, he was there for 2 or 3 years, and I
Wow.
don't know how come he was
Just
kind of stationed.
24/7 in the hospital?
He was just there.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'll think of his name one day. I can't think of it now.
So you guys just like let this private nurse just in the hospital the whole time? Like that was okay with you guys?
Oh yeah, it was wonderful to have her taking care of that one person, because
Yeah.
we did, and I don't know if I would ever get in trouble over this or not, but there was a person who had very bad, I think it was burns that they told me about. Burns are very painful, and he made it out the window. Yeah, that
This
happened
what?
on one of the floors. Yeah, that was just a story, that's a memory that somebody told me about. That
So are we talking like second story, third story?
third,
So he didn't make it.
it wasn't on my shift or anything, but there were times when people
Jeez.
would be so very much. It would be like intensive care. We didn't have intensive care in those days. And we had a night supervisor. Her name was Miss Lampy. She was one of them. There was another one too that worked nights as a supervisor, but I can't think of her name. But Lampy was famous. She went all over the hospital. Mind you, this is a giant hospital. And
What's the hospital again? The name?
Christ Hospital.
Christ Hospital in Cincinnati.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And when they found out that you had someone that's very serious like that, they would call. We had people who would come in and work like I did as just an outside person, and would do private work or whatever. And they would call someone that was on duty that night, just come and sit with that patient, and that's what you needed, So that really, oh, that saved the day a lot, because you'd have to go back there and check on them every 15, 20 minutes. They were just out of surgery, and we had a thing called level fed, and it regulated your blood pressure, and you had to make sure every 15, 20 minutes that the pressure was maintained just right with that amount of medicine that was going through the IV, and keep the pressure up or not going too high, whatever. So we had was wonderful when they would call somebody to sit with a patient like that, because you just had many kinds of people. And I looked up in Google to see who it was that was supposed to be the era of time that was my patient, but he was from the Red Legs ball team.
What is that?
Red Legs,
Yeah.
they were the baseball team for Cincinnati.
For what? Really?
Oh yeah, Red Legs.
The Major League Baseball team?
And the doctor had all of his patients come to our hospital. His
The
name was
Red
Dr.
Legs.
Baloo.
Baloo.
Yep. And if anybody needed something to be taken care of, it came to our hospital, because that's the one he associated with.
Wow.
And so I looked it up the other day, and I think it was Frankie Robinson that I had.
You had Frankie Robinson?
Uh-huh.
Whoa.
As a patient, and I'll tell you something about him in just a minute. But
What?
I was on 11 to 7, and I was supposed to get things done, we do things like I had done and your dad had done in a hospital sometimes, instead of us doing the preliminary, taking all the stuff and just being ready to go in for the evaluation or the exam.
Yeah.
And so he was in there for diagnosis or whatever, and I was on duty, and you're supposed to get your work accomplished. And I went in to go do the thing that was scheduled for him at 6 a.m. in the morning, and he said, "No way." And so I thought, and then after we have our shift be finished, we have to give a report. So the new shift coming on knows exactly where everybody is, what's happening, and what status this person was when you last saw them, when you made your rounds at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And so when I had to tell the nurse I couldn't do what was required for him for his treatment the following morning, she says there was no way she could tell me to go back and say it again. She went back because she was there and she was in charge. Now, she came out the same way. He would not allow that to be done.
Wow.
So anyway, I looked, and I think it was Frankie, not Jackie, but it was one of the two. And I looked at the years when he was on the team and all that. And then there was another one called Roy McMillan, who's on the Red Legs team.
Wow.
And Ted Klazuski, who eventually had a chain of steakhouses after he retired.
Really?
They're Klazuski steakhouses, yeah. But I didn't take care of him. I took care of Roy, and that was just all kind of fun. And we knew to be very, very non-inquisitive when we were in there. We just did our thing, and that was it. But we all knew who we were taking care of, and
Interesting.
it was fun.
Did you nurses like sort of talk amongst each other, like kind of hang out and like talk about things? Like, Frankie's in that room and we got this and
No, honestly, it was so matter of fact, and you were so busy while you were on duty, and we just kind of knew not to do that, and but we knew when the name came up, it perked up our head, and we realized what we had, but and we had doctors as some of our patients, and you're kind of mindful of that when you go in.
Doctors at that hospital.
Oh yeah, as
Oh
a
wow.
patient, yeah.
Huh.
As patients, yeah,
Wow.
sure.
How big was Christ? Is it Christ's Hospital or Christ Hospital?
Christ Hospital.
Christ. And in
Mhm.
Cincinnati, like, where did it rank size, or like, was it the number one, the number two hospital?
I'm gonna say we had Deaconess, we had Mercy, we had I'm gonna say just about number one,
Really?
one or two. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And I would say something, but it's kind of like
Say
uh,
it. Say you were the best. Say it, Grandma.
no, I'm going to tell you the truth though. When I was talking over about taking going down and taking the test to enter the hospital, Mr. Weeks had been talking to a man who his son was in the X-ray department somewhere, and he gave it a high ranking in the whole country.
Wow.
So that was quite remarkable
Yeah.
to think about. It was kind of a scary place to go because we knew they expected a lot, you know. But
Very, like a very daunting hospital to
yeah,
do this sort of
yeah,
training at. Well, I mean,
yeah.
some of the best training in the country, Grandma.
Well, I don't want to say that, but he was telling me and I just tucked it away in my mind, and I thought, oh, well, it was a little spooky in one way, but we had conscientious objectors who were guys who avoided going into the military because they were going to do a kind of a good Samaritan kind of work somewhere and donate their time. So we had a whole bunch of them come, and they would help us with things that we had to do for men. You know, we didn't do certain jobs for men, you know, like their bathing and all that. Call them in, and they would come and help us finish their bath and stuff like that.
Huh.
It was just the way it was.
So, what war was this? Conscientious objector.
I don't know. It was just the fact that you needed to turn in your ability to say be in military at all, and they just weren't going to do it.
Huh.
So that was the way they used their or kept away from going. You know.
Interesting. We have a couple more pictures. Let's do these, okay?
Well, that's when I graduated, I guess. I can't remember what
Mm.
that's all about.
Oops.
That would have probably been graduation time from high school.
Wow. You're beautiful.
Oh, I don't know.
Here's Grandma's hair.
I don't know about that. I didn't even wear any kind of makeup, but I should have fixed up a little bit. But that's just the way we were. We didn't wear much makeup in those days. Oh, and when I went to nurses training, you're there for so many months. I think it's 3 months or 6 months. I don't know which it was. And then they have a ceremony in the chapel. This hospital had a chapel, and it's called the capping. That's when you received your cap to wear to work and everything.
This cap?
Hmm. And and you get a cape
Oh, it's right there. I
at
see
the
it.
same time.
Oh, yeah,
You get
okay.
a cape,
Wow. So
and
it's.
I still have that cape.
Do you?
Oh yeah, it's a wool thing too.
You'll have to dig it out. I want to see it.
Okay, it's blue. And our uniforms had our names in them, and we sent them to the laundry each week with all of our uniforms in it, and then they knew who to send it back to. So that's why I had that little name tag thing. That was in all of our uniforms. So we had a capping, and the parents were allowed to come down for that. And
That's it.
not too long after that
Wow.
was when I found out my dad had that surgery, And I don't know why I wore the thing to the hospital to show him or whatever, but he had been able to come to the capping because that was a big deal for parents to be able to be there.
Yeah.
And it was a nice little ceremony in the evening time one day, so
Wow.
that was
So that was like you graduating nursing training, right?
uh-huh.
Wow.
You had to be in there for, and we had a 50% dropout. We started with 96 and
Wow.
wound up with 48.
Grandma,
Yeah.
you stuck with it. That's pretty
Did
good.
did I tell you about the time when my mom was able to visit, and one of my friends said if that was my mom here, I would be going home with her today.
Really?
Uh-huh. And Mom told me later that it was a hard thing for her to say because she knew I was homesick too. But she said it was hard for me to say, but she just said, well, no, Betty's going to be working and staying and taking care of things or whatever. Just very encouraging.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, Mom thinks I'm going to keep on working, so I'll keep on working.
And so you
And I
did.
finally graduated.
Look at that, Grandma. You got your cap. You have that cap?
Somewhere I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. It had three little ruffles on the end of it in the
Wow.
back. You can't see them from here, but three little ruffles, and we prided ourselves in keeping those ruffles just exactly right.
Wow. You did great, Grandma.
Oh, thank
You
you.
just did fantastic.
Thank you.
That's amazing. 50% dropout.
Yeah.
That was real tough, huh?
It was the reason I would like to have gone home that day.
Grandma.
Because some of it was just really, really pretty tough. You had people that were not as nice, and it was very austere.
Yeah.
It was very just kind of like a storybook thing. In the old days, it was just you're there to learn. You're just do whatever. And another thing, when we had a patient who was critical or had just died, we had a guideline where if we needed to call the family to allow them to know to come, we could not tell them that they had died because you had to give them enough indication that it's very serious that you come, but we didn't want them to have an accident on the way because it had
Oh,
happened evidently before.
really?
Somebody was told that somebody died, and they just got just so distraught
Yeah.
while they were driving. They had an accident, so that was just a guideline. If you had someone that you needed to allow, and that didn't happen very often, but if you needed to call them and tell them, you had to say it in a kind of a discreet and as truthful a way as you could
Yeah.
to say, well, they've had a turn for the worse and we need to have you, and then you explain when they get there.
Yeah.
So that was part of it.
Were the so did you guys have like charge nurses back then?
Yeah.
And so were the doctors and charge nurses not so nice?
Right.
Yeah, was that kind of normal?
It was absolutely a training hospital, and they literally could not give in and just be whimsical and nonchalant. They had, because they were in charge to guide you during that time, of the charge part. And the doctors we had a doctor when we were in surgery. We were told about it because I didn't have to deal with him this particular one, but understand that he literally would throw a hemostat across the room. And that means it's one of those little, I've got one in the kitchen, I should go get it. And he would throw it because someone handed him a wrong instrument, or he was just tense or anxious about what he was doing. and that's nowadays he would have been called on the carpet because we know that that can cause real
Yeah.
difficulty,
See, the hemostat
contamination.
is that the thing where they put it in and on your what's a hemostat?
A hemostat, and I didn't steal this, but I'll show you a medicine cup. I've got one in the kitchen because they're so handy.
Oh.
A hemostat is a clamp that you put on a blood vessel. Hema means blood,
Yeah.
and stat means stop. So when you have a surgery and they would cut through a vessel, they would clamp it before they did so there wouldn't be a volume of hemorrhage kind of thing. So there were hemostats just draped all around a person when they were being operated on,
Oh.
clamped off until they could tie it with a suture, and then it was safe to let the hemostat off.
Interesting.
So while I was at the hospital, they changed and progressed like you do in all other areas of life, and they changed from having a standard of just a bunch of bottles of medication, and you just give somebody something that's out of the standard ration of stuff that you've got there, until they changed from that to ordering it in people's names. So it was a specific ampicillin for Miss Jones or whatever. And I looked for one of the needles and syringes that I've got here to show you how the thing was done. But what I was explaining is they were changing from having this standard grouping of bottles that we just poured medicines from for all the different people on the floor to ordering it with individual names. And I have a bottle still. When they changed over and we're going to just throw this stuff away,
Yeah.
I have a little bottle right there of straight from the hospital. That's
This-
it.
this
That
one?
is from Christ Hospital,
Wow.
because they would have thrown it away, and that's what that was for.
Does this have medicine inside? What is this? It
Yeah,
does.
it was a Unicap,
What is
and
this?
it was a Unicap vitamin bottle, but
I don't want to put it on its side.
I put castor oil in it probably.
Oh, okay.
It's so tiny and so perfect for that.
Wow. Grandma's off getting something. Hold on.
Well, I'm sorry to take up the time like that, but I have a hemostat and I wanted to show it to you. And this is if you had a liquid medication. That's from Christ Hospital too.
Wow.
But I have a hemostat in there I wanted to show you. And you would a liquid medication you would pour into that, so it'd be the exact measurement of what you needed to give the person. You were very exact.
Wow.
And then this is a pair of scissors. I had my name engraved in a little pair of scissors like that.
Really?
Yeah. I can't find that one, but I've got it in there. Everybody had their own. You can see where the thing would be safe because it would not punch into anybody's skin. It's blunt on the end, very
Yeah.
soft.
Wow.
So that's what that was.
Is this one engraved? What does it say?
I don't think that one is the one that I have, but it's exactly like it. And it's just scribbled on there, just a little line, B Emmons.
Hmm.
I found it in there. It's in one of my. I meant to have that out for you today, but I thought I had my hemostat and I didn't. Anyway,
Who's this?
a person, oh, that's just one of the gals. And when we were in surgery, that's what we looked like.
Wow.
And we'd put on um, we were floaters mostly. That means that you did not have to have a sterile gown on, but you would go get the instrument or the item that the person in surgery needed, and you'd hand it to them.
Hmm.
And you did it all. You did it all with sterile techniques so that nothing got contaminated. We knew how to hold our hands this way so that the water would drip down, and wash your hands, and then put the gloves on so that everything was sterile and you didn't
Interesting.
contaminate anything.
So you did surgery. How often? What percentage of your work was like surgery versus like floor work?
You have 3 months of almost each one of the different things, and you specialize in it while you're there. You just stay there and focus on it.
Oh, really?
Like when we went to Children's Hospital, we would live there. That's one place we lived, was Children's Hospital. And then Dunham Hospital was a tuberculosis hospital. We lived there instead of busing back and forth every day. We lived out there and got up and gave shots. You had to give streptomycin with a very deep needle so it got into the muscle
Ouch.
for sure. Not just in the arm. It had, because most of these people were very thin
Yeah.
when they had TB. And the most comical thing is there was a little lake out there. It was nicknamed Sputum Lake.
Mm.
TB hospital.
Oh, I don't get it.
Yeah, that sounds crazy. But every place we went, they had unusually good food too.
Hmm.
They treated the nurses really well. But we got up. I remember one time at Dunham Hospital, and I was so undone by this. Drew up all the shots that needed to be given for probably 7 or 8 people. And one person I got ready, the needle was in. And some of these folks, you have to really search to find a good spot where you can get into some muscle, because this is a, medicine that you don't want to go into the soft kind of tissue. And that was the treatment for TB. And the needle froze. It was just like it had gotten hard, and it would not push the medicine in. After I got the needle in the person's body, that was the
No.
most undone thing I had remembered for a long time.
Wow.
But then we kind of knew not to draw it up too early, because it will kind of freeze like glue. It just would not come out of the syringe
Huh.
into the.
Was tuberculosis contagious?
Oh yeah, it could be. We had to wear masks
Wow.
and covers for our clothes, and
Were you like worried at all, or?
oh, we were mindful because they gave us good training about how to. And see, I got through it and no
Yeah.
problem.
Did
So
anybody catch it?
I don't think so. We were pretty well taught how to take care of business and not be silly about it.
Wow. So did most of those shots go into like people's butts?
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of like butt shots.
I had one lady who was so thin, I could not find a place that was not. We call it emaciated when the people are just so
Yeah.
bone thin. I mean, they get really, and they don't eat well. They're just not feeling well, and they don't eat well, and So it was hard. It's not like a big, robust person who's got all kinds of muscles, and they're
Sure.
sitting around and laying in bed and stuff like that. So I remember that. Was glad to get through that one.
Yeah. So walk me through. I want to go through each part of your nurse's training.
Oh,
So each 3 month period. Do you remember them all?
I can tell you that the first time we worked, after being there 3 or 4 months, we would go do certain things like taking temperatures, and that meant all kinds of temperatures, and not all temperatures are oral either. We had to learn how to do all that.
Uh,
And we did that for everybody at 6 a.m. in the morning.
hmm.
Some people were not, happy about being wakened up and all that,
Yeah.
but they understood the routine, so they didn't give us much trouble over it. And so that was just a whole learning process. And then we learned how to do um, dressings. Oh, we did a lot of dressings. One of the most unusual things I ever did, and I haven't heard of anybody tell about doing it since then, was a person who had an impairment with their circulation, so that we had to rotate a tourniquet on each extremity, one on the leg and then the opposite leg, then the arm, and one had to be free at all times. So that was one of the most unusual. That was a one-on-one I sat with all night long. That was pretty interesting, but it was kind of scary too, because you didn't want to cause them to lose circulation enough that it had to be done just right. But um, being there that short a time, and starting to be in charge 4 or 5 months after you'd been there was really, really quite a challenge.
Huh.
And,
Is this plug in, Grandma?
you know,
This one. Oh
it should be. Oh, you know what? Something didn't work. Turn that switch there and
Oh, is
see
it
if
this
that's it. Maybe that's it. Yeah. So then, each one of the new learning processes was interesting to me, so that it was, as I said before, I knew that I had as much ability to work at it as they did, starting each new thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we had OBGYN, which is delivering the little babies and all that. And if someone came in thinking, because they were ready to deliver, that they could just come to the hospital, they were taken back out. They were sent to a different hospital. We didn't have emergencies like people could have just come from town, just thinking they could get emergency delivery and taken care of there. They sent them out to a different hospital.
Wow.
So then we had Longview, which is the psych hospital.
Oh.
And that was an interesting thing, too. I had a patient I never will forget. They give you a one-on-one to study, and her name was, this won't harm anything, I don't think, Decima Redwine. And I was writing a report on her and working with her day after day. You have to learn how to talk to these folks, certain way you have to ask them questions, but not make them have hard times of answering things. You make it very basic. We had to learn to talk to them a certain kind of way with that. And while I was there, she escaped.
Escaped.
It was a lockdown facility, and she escaped somehow. But she came back. They found her, and she was fine. It
Wow.
wasn't just overnight. It was like she just got out. She kind of had enough ability to figure that out. So
Huh.
that was kind of exciting to have the person that I was assigned to escape.
Yeah.
But
So that was which period? So you did your first 3 months, and that I imagine that was
oh
like.
no, the first 3 months and all that was the we had crash courses in certain subjects so that they could get us onto the floor to work.
Mm,
One of them was the pharmacology,
got
and
it.
that's maybe partly why it was such a mind-boggling thing to me, the medications, because we had to learn it so fast while we were learning other hard things like microbiology and starting anatomy and stuff like that. And fundamentals of nursing. We had some really heavy duty study in the very beginning.
Wow.
So anyway, that's why part of that was so intense because they wanted to get us prepared to get us onto the floor working,
Yeah.
and they'd teach you procedures, how to do this, and that was another whole different mindset. And all this time we're writing reports and, and going to class and everything.
Wow.
So when that all got squared away and we finally went off to other places to study, it was like a nice treat just to go do something different, but it was still intense. Study everything for children is different, and they get fractional amounts of medication and different things from the grown-ups.
Hmm.
So when we went to Children's Hospital, that was fascinating too. And lived there. We
Right.
lived there in their facility. Not every place did we live, but Longview was a psych, and they bussed us there every day. And that was a little bit more relaxing, We just come back to our own room and everything. But the other ones, we moved out there and lived out there.
Huh.
Dunham Hospital for 3 months. I can't remember what order it was because they were balancing all the different groupings of the nurses that were there to be having their turn at something else while we were having our
I see.
study at the place where we were. And then we had surgery for like 3 months.
Huh.
And that was another thing that was pretty intense. They could call you in the middle of the night if you had an emergency. And you'd be asleep and they call you, you'd get over there fast,
Wow. Really?
and help assist in a surgery.
Where did you live when you were doing like surgery? Was that at Christ
It
Hospital?
was at the hospital, yeah.
And so did you live at Christ
Yeah.
Hospital?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was close.
Oh.
And
What were your living quarters like?
we had either double or single rooms. And I started out with double with a young lady named Honeyman, Julia Honeyman. And we soon decided we'd study better if we were in individual rooms. And then I have a little room by myself, and it was all good.
Did you guys get in a fight?
Oh no, we didn't get any fights.
Okay.
We were just both going our different directions, and there were very few people that ever had any complications like that.
Nice. And was that at the hospital?
Yeah, in the nurse's home. The nurse's home was right next door to the hospital. Remember, it was close enough that you walk under the tunnel once they finally got the tunnel reconstructed
Wow.
and able to go through. But for the first year, we walked through the parking lot and went in one of the certain doors to get to our place of work
And
until they got
you
there.
said it was a little sketchy
Yeah.
going that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the tunnel was there, right?
Yeah.
What when they called you, did everybody have a phone in their room, or was it like a communal phone?
I think we had a buzzer.
A buzzer.
So we'd go and
Did everybody wake up then? Like
no, they had a buzzer for like your room to let you know to go to the phone There's a
Oh,
one
oh,
in the hallway.
really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah. We didn't have private rooms with phones in them, no.
Huh.
So, but you get a signal that you had a phone call, and then you go check it out and go
Wow.
to the thing.
So you sometimes you'd get waken up at what's the latest been woken up like 2, 3 a.m.
Oh, it could be any hour of the night. I remember getting up. I one if
Wow.
somebody came in, who was needing to have a surgery, and it
Yeah.
was getting set up for that. You just go over there. We were the ones responsible. But as I said, our class was the last one that had the full 3 years of ability to actually work our way through, because as I said, it was a total of, you add the class hours and then take that away from 40, and they were allowed to have you work for that many other hours to total 40
Wow.
for the week.
So you got paid for the work that you trained?
No, that
No.
was our tuition, is what we're
Oh, just went to
calculating.
tuition.
That was just part of
Oh.
getting us through school, evidently.
Okay.
That's why it was the good 125 per year,
And so
because we were working, we were staffing the hospital.
did they feed you?
Did they what?
Did they feed you?
Oh, yeah, we had the best food. Oh, yeah, that was funny. They were working on the hospital when I went as a student, and our cafeteria was in a different area. We didn't know it was going to be different and better, someplace different in the future. We just went through the line and got our food. But when they opened up the cafeteria, when it was completed, it was like 2 walls of probably, it felt like 2.5 stories of windows, nothing but windows overlooking beautiful trees, because this was secluded on a hillside in the back. The other area I told you was bad area of town, but it was beautiful to look at. And I remember when we'd go through the line, and there was a cashier there, and of course she knew the student nurses. We all had our uniforms on. And she would look at us as if to say, boy, you guys have been getting an awful lot of good food and no cost for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, we just get anything we wanted. We could pick up a dessert or 2 desserts if you wanted, or we'd tell them what we wanted on their main plate. It was good food. It
Really?
was good food, yes.
Did you guys have like so did they just know who you were because of what you were wearing, or did you have like a card, like, hey, I'm a student nurse?
I'm trying to remember that part of it. They got to know our faces, of course, but
Yeah.
there were times when we were off duty and we'd go. We ate all 3 meals there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, we did. And they knew us, but I'm sure there was something that we carried that would have identified us if there had been a different person on duty, so to speak.
Did you need money for like other things while you were living at the hospital?
I didn't really. I had money to get back and forth to home, and I think it was $1.25 to ride the bus to home.
You take a bus from Cincinnati to Decatur.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
To the main bus station, and then I would walk about 2 blocks, and you pick up the bus that would go up to the place where the hospital was, where the nurse's dorm was.
Wow.
And that was probably another 25, 35 cents. Yeah.
Man.
It was just different era.
Huh.
So we went there, and that was...
So the mental hospital, was it all was everybody sort of mellow for the most part? All the patients?
They could be in any kind of state. And there was one time I remember that it was me or one other nurse that some patient had focused on, and they kind of warned us that the person was watching us, and but nothing ever happened. But it might have been if they hadn't, had the thing in good control or supervisors. We always had supervisors with us, to a degree, and we had classes out there too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had classes out there at the hospital.
Was that one of the slower paced times of your training?
Yeah, it was very enjoyable.
Because it was slower?
Yeah, I mean, it was a different, it was a whole new opportunity
Yeah.
to start fresh with something that you knew you could learn as well as anybody else in the classroom. You had the same chance, in other words.
Yeah. When you
But
were done with training, I don't want to skip, I'm not going to skip too far ahead here, but did you get to choose what you want, your area of discipline when you were done? Or did you sort of
like,
get assigned?
um,
Like, did people choose to go into psychiatry or the mental ward after that when they were done with their training?
you could have opted to say, um, I'd like to get a job out there at Longview, and it probably would have been very welcome to have
Hmm,
you.
interesting.
But yeah, that was true.
Did you get to choose, or was it sort of like an application process? You had to like apply to where you wanted to work.
Honestly, I worked at the hospital, but it was on a ward, just with regular people having a mixed diagnosis in in one area. They tried to keep orthopedics on one floor, and we didn't have any mental, but we had orthopedics, and post-ops would just go back to the room they were initially brought into the hospital
Hmm.
on. They would just go. They'd be just everywhere. We didn't have ICU. That was a talk of the future. But I worked in a different, just an a ward where there were a lot of people. I don't know what I was going to tell you. Did I tell you about that famous basketball player? Oh, he was always. I have his name. His name was Maurice Stokes.
Huh.
Famous basketball player.
Really? Let me see if I can find him real quick.
Yep.
You can tell me about him.
And he was on the first floor, and we were always instructed never to go and bother them. Yep, that was him. But he had a bad injury
Oh.
and had a private duty round the clock nurse. And we would see people come to visit him, and they'd be like, sometimes he would be outside the door, going to or from,
Yeah.
being with them and all. But
Wow. He only lived to be uh 37.
yeah, he was famous to be in our hospital.
Yeah, he played for the Cincinnati Rochester Royals
Uh-huh.
in the NBA from 1955 to 1958. A three-time NBA All-Star. And so they told you you couldn't go up there?
It was in a lower floor. No, they just told us not to ever bother, because they knew these people were famous.
Yeah.
And he had his own nurse, so there's no reason for us. But we were told what his name was, and we recognized when we'd go past the door, on our way to and from the cafeteria. Some way we saw him. He was downstairs,
Huh.
and yeah, he was a famous one that was in our hospital.
Stokes was knocked unconscious after he drove to the basket. He drew contact and struck his head as he fell to the court. He was revived with smelling salts and returned to the game 3 days later uh, after recording 12 points and 15 rebounds. He became ill on the team's flight back to Cincinnati. Stokes later suffered a seizure and was left permanently paralyzed. He was diagnosed with post-traumatic encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy. A brain injury that damaged his motor control center. Wow. During the years that followed, Stokes would be supported and cared for by his longtime friend and teammate Jack Twyman. who became Stokes's legal guardian. So when he came to your hospital, was he paralyzed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
He was there when I arrived as a student. He was there.
Really?
And we just were told that was a basketball player, and everybody was so discreet. Nobody was pestery or uh, inquisitive or whatever. We just understood what our position was to be and to do, and nobody said anything. We just would walk past close to where his door was, and he always had nurses, and so we just never ever said anything or went towards him. We just knew that's who it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
He got inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was in our hospital.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
What was your time like at the Children's Hospital?
That is a good question.
Is that
It was interesting. It's a whole different scenario of things that can be bringing a little one into a hospital.
yeah.
I'll tell you one fun thing about it, though. I had been around my little cousins when, Francis' little children, they were younger than us. And I had never really been able to be around a very young person, a tiny one, long enough, because we only saw him for one day at a time, at very random visits, like 3-4 months apart kind of thing. And so the children don't really warm up to you to let them hold them, they're kind of afraid. It's not like the busy world nowadays where you see people just almost every day. But I never did get to really be very able to hold my little cousins when they were babies, because they were afraid of me. And it was just that one day we'd see them, and that was it. So when we went to the hospital, I remember one thing that they mentioned in class. She says, "Now don't be surprised if the little babies or little young children, toddlers, will grab you by the neck and call you mommy." And I kid you not, that happened.
Really?
Those little children were so used to seeing that different nurses come on, they got accustomed to that, and they were unafraid because they knew they were going to be, there to take care of them, and their mommy was not there. So they just literally actually call you mommy sometimes.
Wow.
And one of the other things that I was amazed at is you have to give little babies shots too. And one thing I prided myself in trying to do was to not wake them up at night, because they would be sound asleep. And so there was a time I can remember giving a little baby some shots, and then kind of massaging the spot very carefully, real fast, and they'd almost stay asleep the whole time.
Really?
Yes, I kid you not.
Wow.
And of course the needle was smaller and all that, and they usually were a little bit more plump than some of the grown-ups that you had to give those long needles
Yeah.
shots to. But anyway, I tried my best to just be good with those little guys, and I enjoyed it. It was quite an experience, and the teacher was right. They sometimes will grab you around the neck and just hug you like you're your mom, and that was so enlightening to me. That was
Yeah.
such fun.
I like that.
I liked it.
I saw back in the day they used to have these like almost like air shots, like in the military when they would do like immunizations, when you got enlisted. They didn't always use shots. Back in the day they had this like air pressurized, I don't even know what to call it. I'll show you a picture of it or a video, but
Yeah, I do know what you
it was
mean.
like hooked up to like an air pressure machine, and it was just air, like a really fine
Yeah.
stream jet of whatever.
That hadn't happened quite yet.
Okay.
We had to do our stuff. But I remember I enjoyed Children's Hospital. It was so different.
Yeah.
And we had children with diagnoses that were things that you don't see with adults. And one time I remember, this is real. We had a little baby that didn't have a brain, a full brain. And so very respectfully, they took us to the room and said, and we'll show you. And they don't have as much hair and all that, but we tried to have a light behind and see that you could just really see that it was not a dense thing. I can't remember what it was that we did to look at the little baby.
Was it alive? Like.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Oh wow.
Had enough of the brain, the area that is required, because a lot of your functions, and that's another thing about anatomy that's fascinating. Different areas of your brain, you can have a lot of it missing, and you can still have the functioning of breathing and the body.
Wow.
Controls.
So that little baby had like eyes and a mouth and everything, right?
Oh yeah.
But it just was it unable to do some things, or did
it
look like a normal baby?
It couldn't be a normal baby. No, it was just a little tiny thing that was limited probably on the amount of time it could live and grow.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, but it was very respectfully done. The way the teacher explained, that we can take a light and try to kind of determine some of the, but the bone, you can't see through bone anyway. So we just knew he didn't have a brain.
Yeah.
That was true. The main part, the upper part.
Interesting. Yeah, I imagine a child in a hospital is usually there for not the
Serious.
best, not the best of reasons.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it was probably a pretty morbid time,
Yeah.
of your training, I imagine.
Yeah.
What was did you attend surgeries there, like children's surgeries?
I don't remember going into the operating room, but we had some of the very frontier kinds of work that was always being done there. Yeah.
Huh.
It was really, really, I can't remember if that is where my brother went to have his surgery at the Children's Hospital. He wouldn't have gone to the big hospital, Christ Hospital, so he went to Children's probably to have his surgery done.
Was there only one children's hospital for Cincinnati?
As far as I know, unless they had a pediatrics unit somewhere that I don't know about in the other ones, like the other hospitals, like Mercy and Deaconess, and there was another one started with an H.
Did you know
Holmes.
nurses from other hospitals?
We'd get to meet them when we went to the thing to study for Children's Hospital. We get to know nurses from other places.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all the nurses came from every hospital to go there. Oh.
Different hospitals of study. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Holmes Hospital, if I remember, was the name of the one where it was very small and famous for having doctors to go there. But also the doctors wanted to come to the other places where they knew that stuff was really on the cutting edge, so we had a lot of doctors, patients too. It was a special place to be able to go. I was pretty fortunate. I was lucky.
Well, good deal. Well, we'll pick up on the rest of your nurses training next time. Okay?
Okay.
And I love you.
I love you too. I love you more.